Welcome to Couch Quarterbacks. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Couch Quarterbacks podcast. I'm Andrew Rochford, and with me, as always, is Ben Steinberg. Stein, say hello to the beautiful people.
Hello, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, Thanksgiving time. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know that we enjoyed our time with family. Took a little bit of time away from the podcast, but we are back. We are back covering Week 12 and recapping all the games from Sunday in this episode, and a little lighter slate since we did have the Thanksgiving games on Thursday.
Yes.
We had very low expectations going into them. A couple of close games, 2 game-winning field goals, so I guess you couldn't complain about that. But overall, like I said, low expectations going into those Thursday games.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a rough Thursday slate all around, and we're not going to recap those games. I mean, we can just give the winners.
Now.
I mean, we had the Bears, the Raiders. I guess the Raiders was the biggest surprise, and the Bills.
Yeah, the Raiders beating the Cowboys, and then the Bills Saints game, which we thought might actually be a good game, ended up being a blowout. So those were the 3 games from Thursday. Stein, you went with the Lions. It didn't end up paying off.
They were close. They had some opportunities. It was a very close game. We got some more information on Tim Boyle. I found out. I actually looked up his stats, his college stats.
And I heard that they were not good.
No, he was not a good quarterback at UConn, which is one of the historically worst.
I was going to say, which makes you wonder how he got a job as an NFL backup, much less being in a situation to become an NFL starter, or a spot starter. So, but anyways, like I said, the Thursday night games, we're not going to recap those. We're just going to recap the games from Sunday. So a little bit of lighter in terms of the games that we will recap. But let's start off, Stein, with the 1 o'clock games on Sunday. The first game we will talk about is probably the hottest team in football right now, facing what was the hottest team in football. The New England Patriots win their 6th game in a row, beating the Tennessee Titans by a score of 36-13. Both teams now 8-4 on the season. And for the Patriots, it's just once again solid defense using their plethora of running backs and a great game passing the football for Mac Jones.
Yeah, and we kind of knew that the Patriots defense was being really, really stingy this entire season. And coming into this matchup in Foxborough, in a cold, snowy Foxborough, against the Titans.
Yeah, we had some little flurries in there throughout the game.
Yeah, just the Titans have not had good weather. And then the Titans also losing A.J. Brown as he goes to IR, so just another weapon lost for that offense.
Yeah,
just what it really is amounts to a demoralizing loss for them.
Yeah, I feel so bad for Ryan Tannehill. I mean, you lost Derrick Henry a couple weeks ago, you lost Julio Jones a week or 2 ago, and then you lose A.J. Brown before this game. I mean, he has just a bunch of practice squad guys or guys that have been on the team for just a couple weeks now that he's throwing the football to and he's handing the football off to.
Yeah, it just was not. It was equivalent to what the Falcons were throwing out last week and weeks before. And everyone's gonna say that the Patriots are the hottest team, which obviously from their win streak they are. But let's kind of look at the teams that they beat, Roach. The teams they beat in this win streak. They beat the Jets. They beat the Chargers, the Panthers, the Browns, the Falcons, and the Titans. Really, I don't think you can say there's an offensive powerhouse among them. Maybe the Chargers.
Yeah, but the Chargers, I mean, you don't really know. One week they're an offensive powerhouse. The next week, when we get to them against the Broncos, they just fell absolutely flat. So,
exactly.
Yeah, and really none of those teams record-wise, I think, are above. They're at
only the
500
Chargers,
or worse.
The Chargers and the Browns are probably the 2 best records.
Yeah, I think the
those.
Browns 6-6,
obviously
Tennessee,
Tennessee,
6-5.
Let's give Tennessee the benefit of the doubt, missing half of their most of their offense.
I was gonna say, I mean, you got Deonta Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard.
And Westbrook Ikine making most of the plays.
Yeah, so definitely a depleted offense.
And look at this remaining schedule that they have. I just want to mention just some of the highlights. Okay, they have Buffalo, Indy, Buffalo. That's probably their toughest span because they finished the season. Listen to this: Jacksonville, Miami, Washington, Philly, and New York. Are those world-beating offenses?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a favorable schedule for them to end the season. Do have that tough stretch.
Excuse me, no, I was those are the preseason opponents. My bad.
I was gonna say, man, that's a lot of games for already having 12 games on the schedule.
Sorry.
So.
They do finish with Buffalo, Jacksonville, and Miami. But Jacksonville and Miami.
Jacksonville and Miami, even though Miami has won a couple games in a row. But definitely going to be their test in the next couple weeks with facing the Bills twice. And that's really going to be for the division since the Bills are right on the Patriots' heels in this division. But anyways, let's get into this ball game as, like I said, a 36-13 final score, and just getting further into the win streak for the Patriots. The offense has kind of started to come alive. I know it's against maybe some weaker opponents, but 24 points or more in each of the games during the win streak, and they've outscored their opponents 211-63. I think they said that at one point during the game yesterday, they had gone through a streak of scoring 77 straight points without allowing a point, because you go back to the Falcons game, and before that with them just doing so well against their opponents. And then 5 out of those 6 wins have been by 18 or more points. So it's not like, I mean, if they have been playing kind of some weaker opponents, it's not like they've just been winning by a touchdown or something like that. They've been at least destroying these opponents that they should be beating.
Yeah, and give credit to the defense, of course, with Matthew Judon kind of leading the way. Guy seems to be a force on every play. J.C. Jackson in the secondary really coming alive. So the whole defense looks great, but right now Mac Jones is easily the best of the rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think he's got more wins than the rest of the rookie quarterbacks combined this season.
No, I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, you look at Mac compared to Fields, to Trevor
Lawrence, to Trey Lance, to Davis Mills,
to Justin Fields, if I didn't mention him already. So it just goes to show that maybe a defense and a strong run game can really take the stress away from these guys that are having to do a lot less.
Yeah, and that's what they usually are relying on, the run game, but this is probably the best stat-wise for Mac Jones in his career, as he has 300 yards passing in this ballgame at 310 with 2 touchdown passes. And then Kendrick Bourne, a nice game for him, 5 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's kind of emerging as maybe one of the top options for Mac, as he's had a nice past couple of weeks. And then the top 2 running backs, Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, combined for a decent workload for one running back, 20 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown, just leading the Patriots as they outscored the Titans 20-0 in the second half. This was a close game at halftime, and then they ran away with it in the second half.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be... We both kind of predicted that the Patriots were going to come out firing. It's a home game. They were really hot, and going against a team that has had losses with the Titans. And for the Titans, just another forgettable day for Tannehill. Yeah, 11 of 21 for 93. Did get a passing touchdown, but just losing it in the turnovers.
Yeah, he had an interception as well in this ball game, and he really missed some of his pass catchers. And I had actually picked the Titans originally in this ball game, and then when I saw A.J. Brown was going to be out for this game and then ended up going on IR, I switched my pick over to the Patriots, and I'm sure am glad I did, as the Titans lost the turnover battle 4-0 in this one, and that was a big difference maker for them. But the running game, even without Derrick Henry, they actually had a great rushing performance between 2 guys that weren't on the team to start the season, between Hilliard and Foreman. Hilliard, 12 carries, 131 yards and a touchdown, and then Foreman, 19 carries for 109 yards, so 270 rush yards on the ground for the Titans. So it's just like they had Derrick Henry in that regard, but obviously Tannehill, without having any sort of notable pass catchers, it's a 93 pass yards. That's really what let down the offense.
Yeah. Just bottom line for this game, though, the Titans just facing struggles on offense overall, and then the Pats defense just continues to surge and will probably carry them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next game, the hometown team. Atlanta Falcons getting the victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Falcons improving to 5-6 on the season, while the Jaguars fall to 2-9. And Stein, I had some fun looking up some stats for the Falcons, because we hear more about it just because we're here in Atlanta and obviously hearing everything about the Falcons. But it's just crazy to think that this team, with the players that they're putting out there on the field, is to be kind of like in a playoff conversation right now, just in terms of the talent that they've been putting out there. And one thing that I found of note today when I was looking at some of the potential teams for the last wildcard spots, the Falcons have a minus 103 point differential, which only the Lions in the NFC have worse. And then you go to like the Texans and the Jets in the AFC side in terms of the other teams. that are worse than that. So the Falcons, with such a bad point differential, are still just a half game out of being in the last wild card spot of this playoffs.
I really don't want the Falcons to make the playoffs. They do not deserve it as much as a Falcons fan and a homer I am.
It's like, do you really want to see them lose by 30-plus points in the first round of the playoffs?
Exactly. Like, I don't want to go into, Tampa Bay or something and just get demolished. No. It's the simple fact of the matter is the Falcons have feasted or famine, and the teams that they feasted against have just been really like sickly animals,
Yeah, we were talking about it yesterday while we were watching Red Zone because we were like, man, the Falcons at 5-6. Like, who are the teams that the Falcons actually beat? It's like, well, they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Jets,
they beat the Giants, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Jags, and their biggest win and their most important one is the Saints. But the Saints have been,
they've been in one of the biggest slumps in football.
Yeah, they've been DOA with the loss of Jameis. So just kind of showing really how it's going to be. And they do have a tough, kind of schedule to end it, as they got Tampa Bay.
They got to play Buffalo.
They got San Fran. They have Buffalo, and they have New Orleans. They do have Carolina and Detroit again, so that could be,
Just don't give Detroit their first win. That's probably the only thing you can ask for. Like, if you want the Falcons to win on a week, just don't let Detroit go like 0-14-1 playing the Falcons in that game, and then let them get their first win
Falcons
of the season.
Probably going to go like 7-10. Like, that's just...
It's just the typical Falcon way. It's like you expect them to get like the top 5 pick, and then they win a couple games, like finish around 500, and now they're in the middle of the first round, like getting the second tier guys in the draft.
Not a lot of game notes about this one. I will say that Cordell Patterson returns.
There's one guy in the Falcons that's just been carrying this team, and that's Cordell Patterson.
Cordell has been just ridiculous. 2 more touchdowns on the ground. Had some nice catches as well, but 16 for 108 in the 2 tutties. I mean, the guy has just been a monster.
This was actually his first 100-yard rushing performance of his career.
Wow, really? Mm-hmm. That is insane.
Yeah, because mainly when he came in was as a wide receiver, and then they kind of switched him when he was with the Patriots to a running back. So
I mean, he's been put all over the field, as we've seen.
Yeah, and like I said, he's just been carrying the Falcons. You saw how much they missed him in the one game against the Patriots on Thursday night, the game that we were at.
No offense.
Yeah, exactly. Matt Ryan in this ball game, 19-29, 190 yards, touchdown, interception. Sadly, that's kind of more the norm for Matt Ryan at this point in his career, and just with what he's working with in terms of kind of like the Titans with the pass catcher he's got to work with when you talk about like Russell Gage, Zacchaeus, Kyle Pitts getting quadruple teamed out there. Yeah,
it's definitely not the Matt of old, and it's really unfortunate. There were some passes we saw where the interception, and then we saw one where he just kind of had Mike Davis open up completely wide open and just completely just overthrew him. It wasn't even tipped or anything. I know Scott Hansen pointed it out.
Scott Hansen was being a little rude to Matt Ryan.
But you do got to give Gage credit. Gage played better than he did in the Patriots game, 6 for 62 and a touchdown. Also, Falcons defense played well with 2 turnovers. Falcons D was missing Deion Jones.
They were missing like everybody. Yeah,
I didn't even realize.
Bullard, Kaminsky. There was one other guy in the defensive line that was missing as well, and then Sheffield in the secondary was gone. So they were down all these starters on defense, and I mean Jacksonville obviously is no powerhouse of an offense.
Yeah.
But to be able to hold them offensively to just 14 points.
Yeah, Dan Arnold for Jacksonville. Dan Arnold did go out with an injury and did not return. They were using Carlos Hyde and of course James Robinson, but
and
really,
the revenge game, Laquan Treadwell
also
was actually
Tavon
the
Austin,
receiver,
who apparently is still in the league, had a touchdown catch.
Yeah, probably its first time since like 2015 or something like that. I mean, that's just the Jaguars have been dealing with so many injuries at the receiver position. They've been throwing everyone out there, but it came out today. Arnold MCL sprain, so he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Like I said, Laquan Treadwell was a leading receiver, 4 catches for 53 yards, which is definitely not a good recipe for success.
Not at all.
And then Trevor, just another Trevor performance where just 23 of 42, 228 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He's pretty much averaging just like a 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
Yeah, I don't think he's had a single game where he's thrown more than 1 touchdown without more than 1 pick.
Yeah, I think I saw something where since their Week 7 bye, he hasn't had a game with either multiple touchdowns or a game where he's passed for over 250 yards.
Or he's had a completion percentage above, above 50.
Yeah.
I mean, he did have a completion percentage above 50, but he's gonna have to start seeing some improvement. Otherwise we're gonna start seeing
and also get some weapons back and maybe get Urban Meyer out of there. But last guy for the Jaguars, James Robinson, 20 touches for 115 yards. Also had a fumble in the ball game, so that's really it for the Jaguars playmakers. And one last thing for the Falcons, Kyle Pitts, just 2 catches for 26 yards. He's only top 50 receiving yards once since he had back-to-back 100-yard games. Of course, obviously, with Calvin Ridley going down, that's really when it started to see the regression from him because, like I said, the offenses are obviously focusing on him and just putting really all their key defenders on him and even like top corners on him.
Yeah, it's been tough for him, but hopefully he can get back and have another good game. So we both took the Falcons on that one in a surprise Falcons take. I know you've been picking against them a lot this year.
I picked the Falcons. The Jaguars was one of my early mistake picks on the season. So even against Jacksonville, I'm going to pick the Falcons
to win. You learn not to take the Jags or the Lions, as I've kind of learned.
Yes, exactly.
All right, moving on to the Steelers going to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Bengals just destroy the Steelers wearing those ugly orange uniforms.
Yeah, we had a lot of ugly uniforms this weekend, Stein, and I don't know, just the orange and black combination, I think it was almost like the patterns didn't work with the helmet and then the jerseys they were wearing.
I think this is the debut of the new orange jerseys, and they just did not look good. But the Bengals played really good in them.
Yeah, so. Hey, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. I guess you could keep wearing those jerseys because they definitely brought them some success on Sunday, 41-10, blowing out the Steelers. The first time that they've swept the Steelers in a season since 2009, so a big performance from them.
And people were saying that this was their biggest win against the Steelers since the 80s or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they pretty much had this game at halftime. It was 31-3, and then they just went on cruise control in the second half. Joe Burrow was good in this one. Joe Mixon has been amazing. Honestly, just as good of a stretch run recently as Jonathan Taylor, but obviously not getting the recognition Jonathan Taylor's been getting. Mixon had 28 carries, 165 yards, which was a career high for him, and 2 touchdowns in this ballgame. He's had a touchdown in 8 straight games, and he's had multiple touchdowns in each of the last 3 games. So, like I said, Jonathan Taylor-type numbers, but has been kind of overshadowed by him.
Yeah, and really we're seeing the offense kind of go through Mixon right now as he's become a do-it-all back for them, not even just running the ball, but also catching the ball.
Yeah, I think he had 4 receptions in the ball game, didn't go for much.
But still eating some of those receptions of a guy like Jamar Chase, who's really cooled off recently, only 3 of 39 in this game. But, overall, this offense has been running through Joe Mixon. So Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow only 20 of 24, pretty efficient, but only for 190 yards and a touchdown and a Minkah Fitzpatrick pick. I think it's closer to the end of the half, the first half. So
when he's got 190 pass yards, 114 of them went to T. Higgins. So you kind of see why Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd, kind of those guys, had down games, as T. Higgins had 6 catches, 114 yards, and a touchdown in this one. So he was kind of the receiver of choice. And then when you're up 31-3 at halftime, you're just going to run the ball the rest of the ball game. So.
Yeah. They kind of got to do the Bengals really got to implement their game plan and do whatever they wanted to against the Steelers, who the Bengals' next few games. They actually have an interesting game against the Chargers, I'll argue.
Yeah, they've got a couple of just teams that are all hovering around 500. When you talk about the Chargers, the 49ers, who have won a couple games in a row, they're back above 500. And then the Broncos, who had an impressive win against the Chargers, they're above 500 as well. So these could be, you got 2 of the 3 matchups at home, but the Bengals currently sitting at the 5 seed. They're 1 game behind the Ravens in the division, but also just 1 game up on Cleveland and Pittsburgh, the tough AFC North division. So these are games against teams where they're going to be tough, but you got to win probably 2 out of 3 of these games just to stay competitive in a tough division.
But also these aren't divisional games, which is interesting because we are getting kind of closer to more divisional games. And the fact that I think the Chargers game, and I think some of these games could really get up there in scores because we can see some of these offenses really have a lot of fun. But let's move on to the Steelers and Big Ben. This is like a Big Ben-esque stat game because 24 of 41, 263 yards and a touchdown, 2 picks. That's just all garbage time, numbers.
Yeah, he got that touchdown in the last 5 minutes of the ball game. Everyone was wondering why Pittsburgh even had him out there.
Yeah, and that touchdown went to Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, the Muth was Luth.
Yeah, my guy on fantasy wise. But, that's just such a typical Ben Roethlisberger, like, garbage time, passing the ball, like, almost 50 times.
A garbage time touchdown. He had 3 total turnovers, 1 pick six in this ball game. So just turning over the ball, not being able to throw the ball deep at all. Missed Chase Claypool a couple times in the ball game. So it's just the type of production that we're seeing from Big Ben nowadays. He'll have, like, a game or two where it's like, oh, like, are we going to have vintage Big Ben back? Yeah. And then it's like he may have some sort of minor injury or something like that. It's like, oh, he's got to deal with that now, so like he can't throw it as far. But
yeah, and the only guy who was really doing anything on that offense at all was Deontay Johnson, 9 for 95, so that was good. Najee Harris though, contained
probably the worst game in his very young career with just 11 touches for 37 yards.
Yeah, pretty much contained. And with this loss, somehow the Steelers fall to 11th in the AFC, even at 5-5.
The AFC is much more competitive than the NFC. You got like a 5-6 Vikings team that's in the last wild card spot
and
in
the Falcons
NFC.
Are sniffing distance.
Whereas like the same record in the AFC is good for 11th place.
Yeah. But, just kind of looking ahead, they do have a Ravens matchup at the Vikings on Thursday night and the Titans, so 3 tough matchups coming up for them.
Yeah, the Steelers have one of the tougher schedules to finish out this season, so I think we mentioned in our last show how the tie maybe could go in their favor in terms of having a tie instead of a loss, even though it was against the Lions, a game that they should have won, but they definitely have one of the tougher schedules to finish out this season, and if Big Ben's going to play like this against some of these other teams, I mean, the Ravens defense is going to feast on them.
The Vikings offense can destroy their defense.
And then the Titans defense has been pretty much better of late, so it could be some tough sledding for them.
Yes. All right, moving on. And probably the most thrilling game of the entire 1 o'clock
the most entertaining and probably the highest scoring. Yeah. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting the 38-31 victory over the Indianapolis Colts.
Everyone wants to say Tom Brady and the Buccaneers come back, but it was, let's be honest, it was the Leonard Fournette show.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady, like, when you look at his stats, he did not have a good game. It was all Leonard Fournette with the 4 touchdowns.
A lot of bad passes early, too. Brady's numbers, 25 of 34, 226, and the Colts really were up 24-14 at half. And it just looked like, the Bucs were going to drop it, and the Colts were going to be able to continue their wave.
Yes, Stein. The Colts' biggest problem was they had 4 turnovers in the second half, and the Bucs were just taking advantage of all their turnovers. So they had 5 total turnovers in the ball game, and the Bucs got 24 points off of them. So 3 touchdowns and a field goal, and then the last turnover was on the Hail Mary pass at the end of the ball game. So
yeah, and that one doesn't
every single turnover they had a chance to capitalize on, they capitalized on.
Yeah. Just kind of Carson Wentz-esque performance of the team started off really looking good in the first half, and comes clutch time in the second half, just not being able to finish at all.
Yeah, he had 3 turnovers in this ball game. I mean, one of them being on the Hail Mary.
He did have some really nice deep balls, though.
Ashton Dulin got loose for a 62-yard touchdown catch.
Ashton Dulin.
Everybody's favorite Ashton Dulin, their wide receiver 2 in fantasy.
Yeah, but before we talk about the Colts, let's talk about the Bucs. I did try to pass them over because I don't like talking about them that much.
We'll go quickly through it.
Yeah, we already talked kind of about Brady, but Gronk had a good performance.
He was the only good receiver or pass catcher in this ball game, 7 for 123, because Chris Godwin 4 for 24 and also lost a fumble in this ball game.
Yeah, very forgettable performance for Chris Godwin.
Mike Evans 3 catches for 16 yards. So like I said, besides Gronk, and then Leonard Fournette had 7 receptions and a receiving touchdown in this ball game to go along with his 100 yards rushing and 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, and everyone thinks it's so cool that it's Leonard Fournette. It's like,
oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, 4 touchdowns. Fournette.
I saw Fournette, or someone tweeted out the Brady gif of him last year, not remembering what down it was, and had him holding up the 4 symbol, and I think Fournette retweeted.
Everyone wants to make the Bucs like a meme, but they're like funny. They're not like, they're just. I hate the Buccaneers. They're not like.
Oh really? I couldn't tell through the disdain in your voice.
Let's start in the final drive. The Buccaneers were kind of having this, this drive to try to get into field goal range.
Yeah, they were just like kind of slowly chugging down the field. They were going to set up for a game-winning field goal, and then Leonard Fournette ends up breaking out a 28-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, and then a lot of guys would have gone out at the 1 to try to kill the clock, but nope. He said he's let me get my 4.
Yeah, there was only 20 seconds left in the ball game when he scored the touchdown. So, like I said, the Colts had a chance because they had a great kickoff return, but Carson Wentz throwing an interception.
Yeah, that was an amazing kickoff return. They just couldn't finish it. For the Colts, Carson Wentz, like you said, had a good first half. 27 of 44, 306 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'll go ahead and say one interception because that second interception. Hail Mary,
but still had a fumble in this ball game as well. And like you said, most of his production all came in the first half. All 3 of those touchdown passes were in the first half.
Yeah, everyone kind of getting involved. Jack Doyle, 86 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, and I hate to say this because this is still good numbers, but not like great Jonathan Taylor numbers.
Yeah, this is a down game for the best running back in the league right now. And that's 16 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. He had 97 scrimmage yards in the ballgame. That's his lowest output since week 3. So that's just showing that the type of season that he's had. And when you're facing off against the best rush defense in the league in the Bucs, we didn't really think he'd go 2 for 2 in terms of having the 5 touchdown performance against the second best rush defense in the Bills, and then having to face the best one.
I mean, he's still those are still pretty good numbers though, but not like the numbers we saw weeks before.
And especially when you're coming off of a 5 touchdown performance, it's like, is he going to repeat this type of production?
Yeah, it's like, I want 5 touchdowns every week from him.
If only.
And then the last kind of storyline from this, the fact that Vita Vea, I don't know if you saw it, got headbutted and lost a tooth.
Yes, he was all bloody like right in front of here.
Yeah, that was pretty funny for a guy who is just a run swallower. I mean, the guy eats literally runners. But it's just interesting because I don't really know how to gauge this Buccaneers team. I don't know if they're old. I don't know if they're like good.
Because it still wasn't even a great Bucs performance. I mean, you take Leonard Fournette out of this equation, and like I said, we look at Tom Brady's stats. Like, he didn't do much in this ball game.
Yeah,
so
and you think that the Colts are like still a decent team, but then you're like, are they the Colts? That we know.
Yeah, once again, both these teams are kind of tough to gauge because you think the Bucs, it's like, they're gonna get on like the second half tear and then end up getting like one of the top spots in the NFC, and then same thing with the Colts. It's like, they had won 3 games in a row. Like, they're gonna start working their way back into the division. Like, the Titans have all these guys lost, even though they lost both the games to them. So both these teams are kind of tough to gauge. I will say that the Colts have Houston next week, then they have the late bye week, and then they end up playing New England. That'll be a big matchup versus New England. Could be a must-win game for them.
Yeah, coming off a late bye at that to prepare. And then for the Buccaneers, they are going to Atlanta. I think I will be going to that game begrudgingly.
Maybe you'll give the Falcons
amount
some
of
good
Patriots,
luck.
The gear that we'll see, with Brady jerseys. And then the Bills, which also will be a very tough matchup on Monday night. That will be awesome to watch that one. Sorry, I was thinking the Patriots Bills. Sorry, the Bucs play the Bills will be a tough matchup, and then the Saints on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, nice little divisional matchup. Remember the Saints, the game that Jameis got hurt, the Saints end up beating the Bucs, so the Bucs trying to get some revenge.
Yes, definitely. All right, moving on. Panthers going to Miami. Down to Miami, and they drop it 33-10 against the Dolphins. And the big news out of this one, guys, before we even get into this game, is Christian McCaffrey out for the season.
Yep, news broke a couple hours ago. I had to go back in on our notes and change it from the original reports were saying, because the Panthers have a late bye, they have a bye week coming up, so it's like, McCaffrey, like the initial look is that he'll be back after the bye week because it fell in the right time and everything like that. But then it came out he was placed on IR for the second time this season. So apparently if you get placed on IR twice in one season, then you're out for the season. So Christian McCaffrey done in just the second lost season in a row in terms of just battling injuries. A guy that had been extremely durable to start out his career, and now he missed time earlier this season with a hamstring injury, rolling his ankle in this one after just 10 carries, and now done for the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle for him recently, last season and this season, and in a position that is notoriously not durable. Are we going to see a regression in overall performance? Is he not going to be a fantasy kind of number one guy going forward?
That's what I was talking about with a friend. I was like, all right, so because you've had the top 4 picks from this year in fantasy all go down in terms of Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, which we'll get to him, Saquon, and then Kamara as well. So you've had all these like top tier running backs miss some sort of time this season. With the emergence of like Jonathan Taylor and then Austin Eckler having a great season, Joe Mixon as well, it's like, do we see Christian McCaffrey as the 1-1 next season?
Yeah.
Like, it's a real question that we'll kind of talk about throughout the offseason. It's like, with the durability concerns, with this Panthers team where they have question marks at the quarterback position, it's like, do you trust him as being the first overall pick in your draft if you got that spot.
Yeah, to guys like Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry kind of take over that spot next year.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be something that's going to be talked about throughout the rest of the season and then going throughout the offseason. But just terrible news from the Panthers front, a team that, while 5-7 and losing this game pretty badly, was still, once again, with the weaker NFC, trying to fight for a playoff spot.
Yeah, and the name of the game was Cam Newton, after a bad performance last week, capitalizes with another terrible performance, even worse than last week's.
Yeah, which is very tough. And I mean, when you see these stats, 5 for 21 passing for 92 yards, 64 of those 92 coming on one play. Did have a rushing touchdown on one of their first drives of the ball game, but then had 2 picks and was eventually benched in the second half for P.J. Walker, who, by the way, pretty much put up the same stat line and was sacked 4 times through a pick of his own. So just not a good day to be a Panthers quarterback in this one. But Matt Rule did come out and say that Cam will be the starting quarterback after the bye week. So it's kind of been a struggle at the quarterback position for the Panthers this season. Besides those first 3 games from Sam Darnold, it's been all downhill since then.
Yeah, remember when the NFC South was the strongest quarterback division?
Yeah,
now it's one of the weakest.
Yeah, when you had prime Matt Ryan, who had MVP, Tom Brady came over. You had Jameis with the 30-30.
Cam, and a healthy Cam, full healthy Cam.
And then Drew Brees, I mean, still kind of towards the end of his career putting up numbers. But it's turned from one of the best to one of the worst now, and especially from the Panthers has been a major struggle.
They're definitely the locale of the quarterbacking in the NFC South. Otherwise, besides the quarterback and then running back, obviously we said Christian McCaffrey. DJ Moore was actually their best player with 4 for 103, including that 64-yard catch. So, I guess the lone bright spot in that offense was him.
And then in terms of looking forward, Chuba Hubbard, if he was dropped in fantasy, he's definitely going to be one of the top waiver wire guys, as he's going to take over the majority.
And they have another
carries.
Their other running back too.
Abdullah, they have Amir Abdullah as well.
He might be
a
picked up
PPR
someplace.
type guy. But I found this stat sign. The magic number for the Panthers this season has been 21, because they're 0-7 when they've allowed 21 or more points, but they're 5-0 when the defense has held their team to 20 points or less. So if you get 3 touchdowns on the Panthers, the game's over. You've won the ball game.
Don't tell it to the Falcons. And it's a good defense. I think overall for the Panthers, I mean, it's just the fact they're giving the other team's offense so many more opportunities because their own offense isn't staying out there long enough.
Yeah, and we'll finally talk about the team that actually won this ball game.
Yeah, I mean, we got to give credit to the Dolphins as they've been hot lately.
Yeah, and they really destroyed this good Panthers defense. The Dolphins get their 4th straight win, moving up to 5-7 now. To another great pass completion performance, 27 of 31, 230 yards and a touchdown. Myles Gaskin added 49 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. And Jalen Waddle having a career game, 9 catches for 137 yards and a touchdown.
Jalen Waddle does not look like he's been in the league as a rookie. He doesn't look like a rookie. He looks like he's been in the league for 2 or 3 years.
He looks very well seasoned out there. And you can definitely tell that Tua Jalen Waddle college connection is coming forth with the Dolphins. I mean, Waddle has had 60 or more receiving yards in 6 of his last 7 games and also had 6 or more targets in all those games. So with the injuries to Devontae Parker and Will Fuller, Mike Gesicki's had a couple of goose eggs this season. He's really stepped up, and like you said, just looking like a guy that's been in the league a couple of years with the type of production he's been putting up.
Yeah, and he had the celebration of the week with the waddle.
Yeah, the little penguin waddle.
Yeah,
so.
Everyone was loving that. I loved it. That was great. A great celebration. And you look at this Dolphins team that's playing hot. Defense is playing well. Offenses. Brian Flores has saved his job, I think, so far.
And look at the schedule they got coming up.
They got 2 wins. I can say that.
Yeah, they play both teams from New York and with a bye sandwich in between. So you get the Giants bye and then the Jets. So looking at 500, 7-7 going into the back 3 games of the season. So they're definitely flirting with some last wild card spot position.
Right, you can't argue that they're not going to win both of those games against the Giants and Jets.
They should.
Yeah.
It's just
both of those teams are coming off wins, though. Let's be honest.
They both did end up getting wins. The Giants won maybe a little better than the Jets won, but still both teams coming off wins.
Yeah, that's a great segue into our next game.
Oh, I didn't even realize it was next.
Yeah, and what was probably one of 2 or 3 ugliest games of the weekend, with the Eagles taking on the Giants and a 13-7. What can we say about this game, Roach?
Yeah, I mean, just with a 13-7 game, not much offense. 596 total yards between the two teams. The big thing for the Eagles in terms of losing this one is they had 4 turnovers compared to the Giants not turning over the ball at all. How do you force Danny Jones to not have a turnover in a ball game? No fumble?
No, not a fumble, not
like
a
this
pick.
is a good Eagles defense. Come on.
I know. It's odd. And a division opponent, a team that's notoriously probably for getting after each other. Just no turnovers for Danny Jones, but he did have a passing touchdown, right?
Yeah, it was like Chris Myrick or something. It was like a third string tight end that ended up catching the touchdown. Where I didn't think it was a touchdown. I wanted Saquon to get a rushing score, but I mean Daniel Jones 19 of 30, 202 yards with a touchdown, no turnovers. Saquon 17 total touches for 53 yards, but 32 of those came on a single run, so still kind of waiting for a Saquon performance. Obviously, still coming back from the injury, and I especially need it for my fantasy team since Dalvin Cook went down, so I really need him to step up in the back half in their last couple of games of the season. But other than that, there's really no other note for the Giants guys. Kenny Golladay was the leading receiver with just 50 yards receiving, so...
Yeah, Saquon did not have good lanes, really. It hasn't been... He's kind of like McCaffrey since he's been back and been relatively healthy.
They've never had a great offensive line behind him.
True.
Like even when he was healthy and dominant in his first 2 seasons.
Yeah, and their offensive line just not looking good again. But the Eagles, though, Jalen Hurts, that was the story, just struggling.
Yeah, did everything to give away this ball game, which he ended up doing.
Exactly. And a guy who's been pretty good so far in building his momentum and confidence. Just a goose egg of a performance from him. 14 of 31, 129. Just not terrible, but it was the 3 interceptions that really made it terrible.
Yeah, 3 interceptions, no passing touchdowns on the day. He ended up saving his fantasy performance, I guess you could say, with 8 carries for 77 yards, which led the team. He's always got those rushing numbers in there.
He's been a quarterback, what'd you say,
he was quarterback 1 overall in fantasy because he had 3 rushing touchdowns last week.
But his interceptions are going to bring him down in his lack of passing production.
Yeah, Kenny Gainwell, the only reason I put him on here, I mean, you usually don't highlight a guy with 3 receptions for 32 yards, but the 32 yards actually led the team receiving just to show the type of performance that the Eagles had offensively. Boston Scott, 15 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown, but also had a key fumble in the ball game to the Giants. The team rushing the ball was still very effective like they have been the past couple of games, 33 carries, 208 yards and a touchdown, so over 6 yards a carry. So very effective on that front. Miles Sanders was banged up a little bit in this one. I think he rolled his ankle as well, but ended up coming back. But he had an okay performance as well on the ground.
Yeah, and then Jalen Reagor was the most hated man in Philadelphia towards the end, as the Eagles were a game-winning drive to try to go ahead, because an extra point would have won them.
14-13 final score, and he just drops the ball right
he
at
was
the
at
goal
like
line.
the one or the goal line, and literally the ball hits him right in the chest. It just looked like he wasn't ready at all. It was kind of funny.
Who was the old Eagles receiver? Was it J.J. Arcega-Whiteside? They had an old receiver that had so many. It may have been Reagor, honestly.
Aguilar, probably.
Nelson Aguilar. That's what it was. Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Eagles. We know their issues that they've had with like drafting bad wide receivers and everything. The guys that they picked, like they picked Jalen Reagor. The next pick was Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
So we know how bad that they've been in terms of picking wide receivers. But I mean, man, the guys have such costly drops in like key situations. It's just absolutely awful. But
and Devontae Smith just not kind of a non-factor. He
no-showed with 4 for 24. But.
Yeah, so I will say he's the best Eagles receiver. But the fact that you got to have Smith making those catches at the end. You can't have Jalen Reagor.
Dallas Goedert had 1 catch for 0 yards in this ball game, so he basically wasn't out there either. So just a bad performance from the Eagles.
Don't football people know you need to pass it to Devontae Smith to win the game? Touchdown!
Yeah,
Alabama wins. As
Exactly.
our Georgia fans will love to hear that.
Great call.
Looking forward to the SEC championship game real quickly, guys. Let's have a quick plug. Georgia taking on Alabama this weekend, and college football has just been insane this past week.
Absolutely nuts.
All these coaches.
I would say not only this past week, with all the coaches, we had wild finishes in rivalry week, but just this whole season in terms of just like the fluctuation, especially with the top 5 teams. Besides Georgia,
there's not a definitive Heisman guy.
Yeah.
People are making the case for Jordan Davis for Heisman, which
I mean, you got like Bryce Young, you got Kenneth Walker from Michigan State.
Yeah, Matt Corral.
Yeah, I mean,
and then Hassan Haskins.
Yeah, Haskins had 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns for Michigan in their big upset win against Ohio State. So it's just about anyone's game.
I don't know. Can we talk about college football instead of the Jets Texans for the next one?
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather skip it over, but we'll, I guess, quickly mention it because it's very rare that we get a Jets victory.
Yeah. So last game was 596 yards of total offense. This one was.
Did you think it could get worse?
468 yards of total offense.
Yeah, and Stein, I tried to like look into it, and I was like, was there like a bunch of turnovers? Was there like a bunch of punts in this ball? There was only 9 punts in this ball game, so it wasn't very like abnormal in terms of punts, like 5-4. There's a couple missed kicks for each team in terms of field goals and extra points, but I think it was just really, when it came down to it, it was just bad football between 2 bad teams. And the Jets end up getting their 3rd win of the season. Texans falling to 2-9. I mean, there's not much to highlight here. Zach Wilson did return.
His return game.
Yeah, he missed the last 3 or 4 games.
That's a quarterback I was missing from my Mac Jones comparison.
Yeah, that's the last one. Which obviously they have 3 wins on the season. Like he's definitely not contributing to that besides a win this week. But 14 of 24, 145 yards. Did have a rushing touchdown and an interception, sacked 4 times in this ball game. The Jets running backs, which no Michael Carter, so other guys having to step up. You got Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, and then a guy that we never heard of when he scored a touchdown. We were like, who? What?
Yeah.
Austin Walter, second-year guy out of Rice. They all combined for 31 carries, 147 yards, and a touchdown. So you take those 3 Jets running backs 2 through 4, they make a great running back 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we expected from the Jets. I mean, Michael Carter, I also like Elijah Moore, who had 4 for 46.
Yeah, he was their leading receiver on the day.
I mean, this Jets offense, which for literally the past, as long as I've known it, has never been effective in any capacity.
Well, I was going to say, even when they went to the back-to-back AFC championships with Mark Sanchez.
Even when they had guys like Brandon Marshall.
It was their stud defenses. Like, it was Revis Island and everything like that.
B.J. Raji, No, B.J. Raji was the...
that was Packers, other green team.
Bart Scott, excuse me.
Yeah, there you go.
Bart Scott. I knew it was a big defensive lineman. But just the fact that the offense has never been good, but Moore and Carter kind of give me a little bit of hope that the Jets offense will one day be good.
They had a decent draft. So, I mean, they just need to do that like another 3 or 4 times. They've got a couple... They've got a lot of picks in the first 2 rounds. I know they have the Seahawks first-round pick, which the Seahawks are bad this year. So I think they got 4 or 5 picks in the first 2 rounds.
I'm still in the camp that Zach Wilson is going to be a bust, the biggest bust of this draft. I think the Jets wasted their pick. I don't know if Mac Jones would have been better. I think it's just whoever goes to the situation.
Yeah, honestly, it's like if whatever quarterback, that's just kind of where they just went to die. So
exactly. And then for the Texans, speaking of places where quarterbacks go to die, 17 of 26 for Tyrod Taylor. 2 touchdowns, but did get picked off and also sacked 5 times.
Yeah, so 9 total sacks in this ball game. I mean, the defense is feasting on some bad offenses.
Including a big pick by the defensive lineman for the Jets. That was actually a very impressive play for him. He tipped it up at the line and caught it himself.
Yeah, very impressive. And really the difference between these 2 teams, we talked about the Jets running backs, what they combined for. The top 2 Texans running backs with David Johnson and Rex Burkhead, they combined for 22 carries for 66 yards. So that's really your big difference maker. And the ball game with them not being effective compared to the Jets running backs being effective.
I like how we both took the Texans in this one. Just because we saw the Texans beat the Bills and we're like, or beat the Titans.
It was like, oh, the Texans are at home.
Beat the Titans. We're like, oh, this team's gonna be good.
The Texans are at home. Like, I don't know. Like,
and unfortunately the Jets win in just an ugly game.
Hey, this is a game I'm okay with losing. Honestly, I'm just glad we picked the same team because I would have been disappointed if I picked the Jets and the Texans ended up winning this ball game.
Yes. Moving on, for the only 4:05 slot, me and Roach were also doing a puzzle during this part. I remember.
Yeah, a little bit of a slower red zone window with the Thanksgiving games.
There wasn't the 4 games or something, and just the usual.
This was really the only game going on for like 20 minutes because most of the 1 o'clock games ended early, but the Denver Broncos end up getting a victory at home and beating the Chargers 28-13. Both teams now 6-5 on the season. And a great performance from Javonte Williams and really both their running backs in this ballgame for the Broncos. Javonte, 14 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And then he was their leading receiver, Stein, with 3 catches for 57 yards. So that's a combined effort of 17 touches for 111 yards and a touchdown. Great performance from the rookie. Melvin Gordon added in 17 carries for 83 yards. So that tandem of running backs has been great for the Broncos this season.
Yeah, it's been working for them. And unfortunately, Teddy Bridgewater did go down with an injury. Before that, he was 11 for 18, 129, 2 TDs, including one on the ground. So he was on his way to a decent game.
Yeah, he ended up missing a whole quarter of this ball game. Did come back in the second half because Drew Lock, I know he's your boy, Stein, but he was an absolute wreck when he was out there. So he was able to gut it out in the second half.
He wasn't expecting to play.
That's why he threw the interception. He wasn't ready, coming in cold off the bench.
But also, the thing with Teddy, I mean, in the second half, they were definitely trying to run the ball with their running attack of Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, you got 31 carries compared to 18 pass attempts from Teddy Bridgewater.
You can see where in the name of the game. Also, for the Broncos has been their defense, where Patrick Surtain, 2 picks, including 1 pick six, really to kind of seal it towards the end, and the Broncos defense getting the job done again. Also kind of a team that's going to be carried by their defense, as we mentioned, teams like the Colts earlier,
Yeah, and another team that's kind of floating in the wild card conversation. They're currently 9th in the AFC with a 6-5 record, and they're once again, just like the AFC North, the AFC West is a very tough division. They're 1 game behind Kansas City for the division lead, but then they're also tied with the Chargers and the Raiders, all 3 of those teams at 6-5 in last place. So a very tough AFC West division. Definitely the last divisional games they'll have are going to be key, and the next matchup that they have is going to Kansas City to face the Chiefs, so that's going to be a very big matchup for them.
Yeah, so the Chiefs trying to get first place in that division. They'd be tied for first.
Yeah, the Chiefs coming off of a bye this week as well.
But then they do have the Lions, so that could be a nice break. But then
it should be a nice break.
Yeah, but then a tough game against the Bengals. So it's going to be their defense is really going to have to play well and continue with that rushing attack if they want to succeed. Meanwhile, for the Chargers, Justin Herbert wasn't terrible, 28 of 44 for 303. 2 touchdowns, but his 2 interceptions to Patrick Surtain was what really kept him out of it.
Yeah, and when we talk about the Broncos being like the defense is going to carry him, it's for the Chargers, it's the offense that needs to carry them. And Justin Herbert, he had a career game last week, but like 3 or 4 of his last 5 or 6 games, he's had like kind of down performances. I mean, you look at the stats, and they're not bad, but just putting up 13 points is definitely not going to get it done. And he was the leading rusher with 36 rush yards, so with them playing behind, they had to go away from the run game.
Yeah, after a great run by Eckler last week, just not a no performance from him.
Yeah, I mean,
on the ground.
Yeah, I was going to say, he did have a receiving touchdown, 6 catches for 68 yards, so overall a decent performance from him. And then Keenan Allen, as steady as ever, 7 catches for 85 yards. Really no one else of note for this Chargers offense. Mike Williams, though, 4 catches, 39 yards. Remember the hot start he had to start out the season?
Yeah, he's really quieted down.
Yeah, 58 yards or fewer in 5 of his last 6 games, so just absolutely cooled off. We thought he may have been the wide receiver 1 for this team instead of Keenan Allen, but
yeah, no, it's still going to be Keenan Allen, and for this Chargers team to be successful, their offense, everything's going to have to be clicking on all cylinders. It seems like Herbert really isn't missing a beat. I think his 2 passes to Pat Surtain were bad passes. They were his fault, but I think those are passes that he can fix. Mm-hmm. But guys like, I mean, Allen's been steady, but Mike Williams and Jared Cook are going to have to step up, really.
Yeah, definitely going to need to step up on this offense.
And Eckler, of course, are running the ball too.
Yeah, the Chargers they're in the last wild card spot right now, 7th place in the AFC. They go to Cincinnati next week. Then they have a home matchup against the Giants, which should be a win. And then just like the Broncos, where they got to win the divisional games in the tough division, you got a Thursday night date in Kansas City as well. So Kansas City getting all these home divisional games late.
Yeah, and prime time too, some of them. So that's going to be that's going to be a trap game for them. It's going to be a hard game for them a tall order, I should say, for them to win.
It should be a good matchup next week. I mean, the 2 second-year quarterbacks with Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, so that'll be a fun matchup to watch in Cincinnati.
Yes, definitely. Moving on to the 425 games, we got 2 of them. And the
couple high scoring games.
Yeah, I would say probably the best game on paper, not exactly an execution, was the Rams going to Lambeau to take on the Packers. Seems like the Packers always get a good game at Lambeau at like 4, like prime time.
Especially this time of year because it's always kind of like snow flurries, like the cold weather.
Yeah.
You see everyone's like breath and
yeah,
everything.
They always get that home field advantage. And of course, they take advantage of the home field advantage, beating the Rams and 36-28 score, which is not that close as the score seems.
Yeah, I mean, it was 36-17 going into the fourth quarter. The Rams trying to make a late push and ended up making it look like a closer ball game than it actually was, but they once again struggled, dropping their third game in a row, and they've really been struggling since they formed that super team with Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, and for the Packers, just a pretty good like all-around game from everybody. Aaron Rodgers, 28 of 45, 307 yards, 3 touchdowns, including one on the ground, where he gets his signature discount double check. Just a great performance from him. Devontae Adams, of course, leading receiver, 8 for 104. Randall Cobb, 4 for 95.
Hey, Aaron Rodgers wanted to bring him back, so like once in every 6 games he ends up having a good performance, but he did go down with a groin injury, missed some of this ball game, so we'll see if he is able to come back next. Well, they have their bye week next week, so should be able to be back hopefully in 2 weeks for them. Aaron Rodgers, of course, battling through the toe injury. They said that it's going to require surgery, but he's not going to get surgery over the bye week because it's going to be a multi-week recovery for him. So he's going to keep getting it out. He's had a couple great performances since he's had the toe injury, so I guess it seems to be working for him. But they did get a big piece of their offense back in Aaron Jones, who only missed 1 game with the MCL injury. Just 10 carries for 23 yards, but the Packers have been kind of known to rest or kind of ease back in their stud players. So a lot of people were kind of surprised he actually even played in this game with the bye week next week for him.
And A.J. Dillon kind of filling in nicely, as we've seen, 20 for 69, also 5 for 21 and a receiving touchdown. So, he
filled in nicely with Aaron Jones out.
Yeah, a nice backup for them, option going forward. Kind of like that 1-2 punch they have at running back. And then the defense playing well for them, gaining a pick 6 and a fumble recovery on Matt Stafford, who had, even despite having 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, a lot of people were saying it was a bad performance from him.
Yeah, I mean, with the Rams during the 3-game losing streak, they've been getting down so much lately, and Matt Stafford has kind of just been having to play catch-up, so his stats are looking okay on paper, but, I mean, 3 straight games to have pick 6s, that's the first time that's happened since old buddy Matt Schaub back in 2013 when he was playing with the Texans. He did it in 4 straight games back then, so Matt Stafford's looking to tie that performance from him. Matt
Ryan did it on back-to-back drives.
Hey, definitely not a stat that you want to be known for, but Cooper Kupp getting some garbage time work, 7 catches for 96 yards. He only had 2 catches for 41 yards at halftime, so he's definitely has not been benefiting from the Rams having bad performances offensively. Had a couple long touchdowns for Matt Stafford as well, a 79-yard touchdown to Van Jefferson, and then a 54-yard touchdown to Odell Beckham Jr., who finished with 5 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, so respectable performance for Odell. There was some talk about some kind of injury for Odell. I forgot what the exact wordage was, but it was
hip pointer.
Hip pointer. I didn't even know that was a piece. That was a part of the body.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a stinger or something like that. I think they call like the hip pointer or something.
Flexor, hip flexor or something.
Yeah, I don't even know what
you're not a
I'm not a doctor.
Yeah. Darnell Henderson, 16 for 55 with the receiving touchdown. Not bad, but a lot of these stats coming in more or less garbage time. And for the Rams, 3rd straight loss. But they do have a get-right game.
They get a
the
bye.
get-right game of all get-right games against the Jags at home. That's going to be awesome. But that's going to be their get-right game because they have a very tough battle. These are the games that Monday Night Football's made for.
Yes, exactly.
At Arizona, going against the 9-2. Are they 9?
Yes, 9-2.
9-2.
You're right. Arizona
Cardinals, who are my bandwagon team of the year.
And then even Seattle.
Seattle. We actually are watching Seattle play Washington right now.
Yeah, for Russell Wilson, a couple more weeks for him to get back into it with the finger injury.
Yeah, they can always be stingy. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be tough sledding for them. Whereas I think the Packers kind of have it a little bit easier.
They're the 2nd seed right now, just a half game behind the Cardinals as they go into their bye week. Then they got a Sunday Night Football matchup at home against the Bears,
That
and then
be.
they go to Baltimore.
Sunday night in Lambeau. Mm-hmm. Oh God! Oh God!
That's gonna be a massacre for the Bears.
Big Cat, I'm so sorry.
And then they go to Baltimore to face the Ravens, which that should be a good matchup because the Ravens the top team in the AFC right now.
The Ravens have had so many like home games against good teams. They're like the Chiefs, you know.
Maybe they slipped the schedule maker like $100 bill before the season started.
I think the teams that had good seasons last year get better matchups.
That's usually how it works, right?
Yeah. Moving on to the final game, just kind of my surprise of the day because I thought the Vikings were better, but they ended up losing to the Niners 34-26.
Yeah, and a great rushing performance from the 49ers, from a running back and from a wide receiver, as Elijah Mitchell comes back from that broken finger. He missed last week's ball game. 27 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown. Also had 5 receptions, so 32 total touches in the ball game. I guess that finger is looking just fine. And then Deebo Samuel, who's become like the hybrid wide receiver running back.
The Cordero Patterson of this.
For this team the past 2 weeks now.
What if Shanahan had Cordero Patterson?
Oh, man. Cordero and Deebo? Oh, God. And then start using Trey Lance.
Taysom Hill? I don't know. Throw him in there?
Oh, I don't know if Kyle Shanahan could contain himself. But Deebo, 6 rushes.
No one can get Taysom because he's locked up for a while.
For 4 years. But 6 rushes, 66 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns for Deebo. That's 3 in the past 2 weeks now. And just 1 catch for 12 yards. So really over the past 2 weeks has become more of a runner than a receiver. But he did go down with a groin injury. They said it's not serious, but probably going to miss a week or 2 with a groin strain. So look for Elijah Mitchell. Look for Brandon Ayuk to really step up in this offense.
Yeah, so the Niners will be on the road at Seattle with potentially missing Deebo, which, you know, the way Seattle's been playing shouldn't be too bad of a problem. They will want him for Cincinnati, though, and probably not Atlanta. But,
yeah, they do play Atlanta at home a couple weeks from now. But George Kittle, just 1 catch for 13 yards in this ball game.
Very quiet for Kittle.
So very surprising.
Very content to block, though, as we know Kittle.
A very selfless player.
Yeah, likes to block, likes to get out on the edge and set the block for a guy like Mitchell or Deebo. Also, Jimmy G was also just efficient, 16 of 26 for 230 touchdown. Did have that that token interception, but
yeah, I mean, he was siphoned 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 of them coming from the wide receiver, so that really bit into some of his pass work. Yeah. But the Niners 3 straight wins now after they were 3-5 at one point. They're 6th place right now in the NFC, and we talked about some of the upcoming games for them. On the Vikings side of the football, 20 of 32 was Kirk Cousins, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Down game for Justin Jefferson, just 4 receptions for 83 yards. The 83 receiving yards led the team. Adam Thielen was the main pass catcher, 5 catches for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a touchdown machine once again this season.
Yeah, Rich, when you say that Justin Jefferson has over 80 yards and Thielen has 2 touchdowns, I expect like a Vikings win. Yeah. But the simple matter is they did not win. Kirk was not great, 20 of 32, 238 yards.
Still a great touchdown interception ratio, like 23-3.
Really?
That was just
overall?
His 3rd interception on the season.
But, not getting up there in pass yards. I think the straw that broke their back was losing Dalvin Cook. He was rushing 10 for 39, but then goes down, also had a fumble.
Yeah, it was awful. Like, he lost like 5 yards on the play. Yeah. He fumbled the football and lost it. So that's like minus 2.5 in fantasy, and then he goes down for the game and he's out for the game. So just like a terrible
all around
play there, where he ends up getting carted off the field. They determined that he separated his shoulder, dislocated his shoulder, and then when he did that, he tore his labrum. So they said it's not considered season-ending, but there's no timetable for his return. Apparently he had a similar injury back in 2019 around the same time, so they're hoping to rest him up for the playoffs if they're able to make it, or maybe the back end of the season for them making a playoff push. So I also saw something earlier today where Mike Zimmer said he was day-to-day, which you would think this is more of like a week-to-week type injury.
Yeah.
So there's really no timetable. I guess he could miss a game or 2. He could miss the whole rest of the fantasy season.
Maybe they're teaching him to carry with his I don't know if he's a righty or a lefty, but
yeah,
the opposite arm.
So it's definitely a very kind of fuzzy situation right now. Hopefully we'll get some more on that over the next couple of days. But Alexander Mattison had 32 touches in each of the 2 spot starts he had earlier this season when Dalvin was out. So if he's on the waiver wire, definitely pick him up.
Yeah, he's a hammer. He's a hammer on the waiver wire. You better pick him up.
Yeah, I think I saw in ESPN leagues that he's only owned in like 35% of the league. So definitely if you've been stashing some of those handcuff running backs, you're reaping the benefits in terms of Chuba Hubbard and Alexander Mattison as the stud running backs go down this week.
Yeah. So going forward for the Vikings, right now they are actually the playoff seed. They are in the playoffs at 7th.
They're battling a couple of teams that are 5-7. They're 5-6 right now. They go to Detroit to face the Lions. Should get a victory there. Have an interesting Thursday night game against the Steelers after that, and then another primetime game going to Soldier Field to face off against the Bears on Monday Night Football.
These are 3 potential wins for the Vikings. I'm gonna say.
You know, the only problem though, Stein, is 2 out of those 3 are primetime games. Kirk Cousins, 8 for 17 career in primetime games, had a loss earlier this season to the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys on Halloween.
All right, well, pick the Steelers or the Bears. You know, because they're gonna
get one of those
win
2.
one and lose one,
and then they should beat the Lions.
Yeah. I mean, so let's realistic think about it. The Vikings right now are
right on track to go 8-9 once again this season,
and they could sneak into the playoffs, and then they're gonna go up somehow in the playoff game, and then Greg Joseph's gonna miss a field goal.
Yeah, they're gonna be like facing Tampa. Like Tom Brady's they're gonna miss a field goal to go up by 2 possessions. Tom Brady's gonna drive down the field for a game-winning touchdown drive.
Yeah, that's just
we're writing the playoff story right now.
That's just how it goes. Let's go on to the final game, and then just an ugly game as that. The Browns going to Baltimore. Ravens, like I said, another primetime game. Just that's how it happens.
Yeah, and they gut out a 16-10 win against Cleveland in a game where Lamar probably had the worst stats of his career. 165 pass yards, 1 touchdown pass, 4 interceptions, and probably the most interesting stat about it is all of his interceptions, he was targeting Mark Andrews.
Yeah, that is crazy. And we did see a crazy play where, he dropped back. And
he threw it up, and Mark Andrews caught it with, one hand.
Yeah.
And then he also, on the touchdown pass to Mark Andrews, he was scrambling, and he was, under the goalpost and, ran out, did a sliding catch. So it was back-to-back plays or, two plays very close to each other where he had sick throws to Mark Andrews, but that was really his only highlights of the night.
Very forgettable game for Lamar. 165 yards with those 4 picks, 17 for 68 rushing, which you would expect a little bit better maybe for that.
But once again, leading his team as Devontae Freeman had 50 rush yards. Latavius Murray was a non-factor in this ball game. Hollywood, 8 catches for 51 yards. He came in a little banged up. Lamar and him did not have a connection on any deep passes. But the Ravens, once again, have been battle-tested this season. 6-1 in one-possession games. They're the top seed right now in the AFC. They go to Pittsburgh next week and then to Cleveland and versus Green Bay. So 3 tough matchups coming up for them, including a couple of divisional ones.
Yeah, I would say those Browns. I would say those Browns and Packers. Browns are going to want their revenge, of course, and then Packers is that's going to be a great game. Steelers might be a little bit easier, but it's always divisional, and they're going to play them tough. Really, I like the Ravens as the number 1 AFC seed, Roach, but I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can hold their own against some of these other teams in the AFC.
Lamar, as you can see, can only do so much. They've had the losses at the running back position. Their defense hasn't been the typical Ravens defense. They've been very susceptible to giving up some big chunk plays. Yeah. So they had a great performance in this one, really shutting down the Browns' rushing attack. But yeah, I think they definitely have some holes in their team in general, and I think there could be some other teams in the AFC that could bring them down when you talk about the Bills, Chiefs, etc.
Yeah, and for the Browns, it was back to their old stomping grounds with the rushing attack, which wasn't as effective as we've seen. Chunt was not great, 17 for 40 between the two of them. Just not great, Roach.
Yeah, the Browns were averaging best in the league, 157 rush yards per game going into this one. Just 40 rushing yards, 2.4 yards per carry. The Ravens defense absolutely shut them down. Kareem Hunt played in his first action since week 7, 7 carries for 20 yards. Nick Chubb, 10 total touches for 39 yards. He had 2 receptions for like 23 yards, so that 8 carries, 16 yards on the ground. So just could not get that bread and butter run game going. So it's kind of surprising that they were able to stick in this ball game because all the Lamar interceptions really kept him in it.
Yeah.
This rushing attack, you would have thought this was a blowout because Baker Mayfield just 18 of 37, 247 yards, touchdown. Also had a fumble in this one. Jarvis Landry, 6 catches, 111 yards. But when the Browns can't rely on the rushing game, then it's usually bad things happening.
Yeah, Landry though was a bright spot for Baker, and some people are calling for them to really like maybe have someone else than Baker out there.
Yeah, it seems like they've been mentioned every single week. Stefanski has said that he's confident in Baker, even with his plethora of injuries. You saw in a couple of his scrambles where he was still kind of hobbling. He's been dealing with the a knee injury, and then also the labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. So he's just been gunning it out, and I mean, credit to him for being able to battle out there and playing that position and just getting hit and still going out there and trying to perform.
Yeah, and then along the same lines for the injury was Jack Conklin, the right tackle for the stalwart right tackle for the Browns, torn patella tendon in his knee. Not a pretty sight.
Yeah, out for the season. It was very ugly when he went out. He started to walk under his own power, then it looked like he kind of tweaked it when he was going out. Then had to get some help off the field.
I've been there, Rich. I've been there. I know what a patella can be like.
So that's a big loss for that offensive line of the Browns, one of the best offensive lines in the league. The Browns now find themselves a half game out of the last wild card spot going into their bye week. They face the Ravens on the other side of the bye once again.
That weird
home.
Ravens by Ravens.
Yeah, they face them at home this time looking for revenge, and then they have another home matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Just interesting lineup for them. I could see them winning at least Raiders or Ravens. I think they can win one of those.
Yeah, definitely. But that's it for our Sunday slate. We're watching the Monday Night Football game right now. Very early, no score in this ball game. Washington football team driving down the field. This is a big game for us, Stein, because we are deadlocked. Both of us 8-6 right now on the week. So I've got the Seahawks. You've got Washington football team. So this is to see who will spin the punishment wheel. We will have that in our next show. We'll finally get back to doing our preview shows.
We got a few
now that
punishments.
We're through the holidays. We're a couple punishments behind.
We're through the holidays, the sicknesses, the all that.
Yeah, and the everything that we've been dealing with over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, and you know, if we have to do like shorter shows and we have to do shorter previews, we can. You know, we can be flexible, but you know, we just want to continue to be consistent and have a nice consistent upload schedule for you guys. Just because it keeps us on our toes and it keeps us watching the games.
Honest, so.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyways, that's gonna do it for this show.
Do you have any notes you want to get off your chest?
I mean, we got some Thursday night stuff, the Cowboys and the Saints, but honestly, I'm sure everyone's been seeing all the stuff that's been going on. The Cowboys have been dealing with COVID stuff. Mike McCarthy's not going to be out there on Thursday. Taysom Hill apparently has taken first-team reps in practice, so we might finally see that switch for him.
I feel like this is a smoke screen, as we've seen every time. Don't believe it, Roach.
and then also could get Alvin Kamara back, which could be a huge help for them as the Saints on a 3-game losing streak right now. But
other than that, I mean, I don't have anything. I'm looking forward to all the college games this weekend, the conference championships. Really hope that some hearts are broken, if you know what I mean. But even if the hearts are broken, I think the team will still make the playoff.
Yeah, we're getting championship weeks and then bowl season. We're getting to the grind of the last couple weeks of the NFL season. So definitely an exciting
so many
time.
people in the transfer portal right now for college football. Georgia Tech's Jamar Gibbs just went into the transfer portal.
Really?
I hated to see that. Yeah. Also Zach Evans, the former number 1 overall recruit, TCU in the transfer portal. And Spencer Rattler in the transfer portal. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with all those USC, Oklahoma recruits.
Yeah, a couple Oklahoma recruits decommitted. So definitely a very interesting time in the football world. But that's going to do it for this show. For Andrew Rochford, Ben Steinberg right there. And we will see you guys on the flip side.
Deuces.